joining us tonight, and welcome to the 23rd Annual Poetry in the Garden event. I'm pretty sure I've only said that about 100 times to myself, so feel free to relax and get comfortable. Say hello in the chat, introduce yourself. My name is Clarity Amrine, and I'm going to be hosting this evening. I work at the St. Bernard Branch Library. That's where I am now. We're very excited to have you here. I'm super excited to be hosting tonight. Many hosts have done this and many people have done this, so I feel really honored to be a part of it. Again, I would love to thank David Siders, Lisa Capel, Ethan Barnes, and the amazing self-declared weirdo, Adam Warwick. So thank you guys for being here. Like I mentioned to some folks earlier, this event originated back in the 90s. There used to be a department at Maine called Films and Recordings. It was part of the nonfiction department. And the manager, Bob Hutzig, started this event in the Maine Library's reading garden there. And it's continued ever since. We have a copy of his poetry chapbook. It's called From the Tree. And we will stick a link down there so you guys can check that out. Check it out from the library if you get a chance. Please keep your mics muted during the performance. If you have a glitch in your audio or video, we just ask that you kind of alert us in the chat, just trying not to interrupt the performers while they do their thing. But please feel free to use the chat for questions, reactions, links. Our poets will be around at the end of the event to, mingle, discuss, pontificate the meaning of life, answer questions. So please stick around at the end and you'll be able to chat. And thank you again for joining us for the 23rd Annual Poetry in the Garden event at the Cincinnati Public Library. That's where applause would be. Yeah, thank you. I do see a lot of familiar faces. So thank you for being here. Our first poet of the night is Ashley-Devon Williamston. They are a Cincinnati-born, Atlanta-raised poet who's gotten pretty good at navigating multiple worlds. Humans are their favorite animal, and they've dedicated their life to studying and making art about these fascinating creatures. You can peek into their world on Instagram by following @OneRareCreature, and the link will be down below in the chat. Thank you. They are also the organizer and host of the open mic and reading series Inkwell Poetry. So please open your heart and ears to Ashley-Devon. Take it.
Oh, thank you, Clarity, for that warm welcome. Thank you to all of my friends who came out today, and welcome to all of the strangers who will hopefully become friends sometime soon. So the poetic experience, I guess, that I've curated for everyone today is kind of a journey from 2020 into this very early part of 2021. Spring is kind of this rebirth period after a long winter, and 2020, I don't know about for everyone else, but for me, it was like the world's longest winter, even when there was warm weather. So I'm just going to use this as a space to reflect on that. And maybe you want to reflect, maybe you just really want to focus on my reflection so you don't have to think about how your 2020 was. Do whatever you need to do. So, as I'm sure most of you know, many people say that the first stage of grief is denial about the situation, and that is absolutely what I experienced at the onset of 2020. And so this first poem is called Day One, Denial. If our lives are indeed purposeful, then I am not where I ought to be. I'm supposed to be in the desert, a barren wasteland with nothing but sun and lizards and cacti to remind me that barren wasteland is a slur to their neighborhood. They prefer me to use hostile biome. It emphasizes their resiliency. Instead, I'm in my office. a habitat of my own creation, where nothing ever dares to chide me. And I brood as I wonder if creators ever plan vacations in other universes, if they also would pack with gleeful anticipation of respite from omnipotence and rage over crushed dreams of diminution. Waves of rain thrash against the window of my tiny Midwestern home. Tornado sirens wail into oblivion. I am affirmed. So this next poem is featured in Ginger Magazine, which I have here, and I know there's a bit of a light glare on it. We're not in the same room, and that's okay, it's fine. It is a poem about edging, and if you know what that is, then good for you. And it is a poem about some stuff I wish I would have done before I wasn't allowed to touch people anymore. Had I known the clock would stop so abruptly, I might have jumped, sank into the deep, admitted that the void is not empty, swam through the plasmic den, and faced the matter of my nightmares to get to anywhere free. I would have paused, plucked the oranges, chewed, swallowed, not for pleasure, but to know fully the disgust within. I could have slipped a hand under your shirt, blown directly onto your neck, nestled much less than 6 feet, not yet a crime to insist we take this to the next level. To let swell and mound without promise of release is only torture, not sport. Now, let me become. And yeah, that's that poem. I am going to switch gears a little bit. And this is one of my favorite poems to read. And I kind of revived this poem in a period where I just decided that I was still going to try to have fun during my summer and, I don't know, feel myself, get out there, feel some other people maybe, I don't know. But the poem is called Bean Water Bishes, and it goes like this. The force field popped. My shield broken by your interest. As it shattered, you approached, trampling over a mess you'd never help clean up. My drink was your favorite drug you had come to imbibe. I denied it to you, and as you whined, I raged of my silent suffering and how you were just one of far too many who came only to tweak, never to learn about how your vices are made. Enamored solely with the product, never the process, which drains every good thing from me and drips it slowly into a vessel, a potion for your pleasure, so good that you never pause and thank the dregs at the bottom of the cup. This next poem is called Left to Feast Upon the Fruits of My Own Labor. It's featured in Dinner Bell, Volume 2. This very cute cover. It's very soft. You wish you could feel it. I'm having a good time feeling it. This is a poem about how I am God in my own universe. So take that however narcissistic as you need to take it. I am a messy eater. I love beholding that which has been carefully assembled and set before me, only to rip it apart, only to have it sprawling across my plate, begging to be made sense of once more. I admire the chaos. I admire myself for transforming the chaos into order. See, you thought the task was already complete, but you aren't very good at your craft, and I am left to bear this burden. I must be the one to grapple and strain and ponder and calculate. I must design this masterpiece. Now this is good. This is a symphony. This is what I came for. Now I can eat. So yeah, that's a poem about how hard it is to be the boss of your own life. But it's a good time too, so that's fine. This next poem is a field poem. As Clarity mentioned, I am an anthropologist, which means that I study human beings for a living, and it's really fun work most of the time, but it's also really complicated work, and it's also work that involves asking people to reveal things about themselves and share parts of their personal histories that maybe they haven't shared with anyone before ever. And so in being trapped in my house for months and months and thinking about my future in academia and in my career, I just kind of, I don't know, felt a wrongness about how invasive my job is at times. And then I returned to this poem and finished it finally, or just kind of made it nicer, I guess. So the name of the poem is called Non-Consenting Participants. Stories finally uttered revive husbands, brothers, fiancés. Phantoms emerge, partial and ragged, horrifying and furious. Their rest has not been peaceful. Dared to justify their awakening, I make an offering of corn and beans and soap. Unimpressed, they devour me instead. And that's that. This is a poem about Georgia. It's the place I was raised, and it's a place that I'll hopefully return to. And my relationship with Georgia is very complicated, and I have spent some time exploring that. And right now, I'll let you all in on that just a little bit. The name of this poem is called Red Dirt Makes Seemingly Greener Grass. A basket floated downstream, drags along debris, sticks and mud and regrets thought buried, wadded into hideous souvenir of truths we'll pretend we don't all see. Pull out the mess, fill the cracks with damp sediment, blend, 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 seal, seal, seal. Not good as new, but should work fine. Has to work. This is our only hope. Does anyone know what happens if a chosen one declines the mission? That's that poem. I have one more poem for you all today. It is also featured in the issue of Ginger that Edging is featured in. And this poem is called Desecrated Site. I wrote it in the spring of 2020, reflecting on my physical existence as a Black queer person, as a small person that does not have too much within my own body to defend myself. So I have to rely on other things. Just a lot was going on in spring of 2020. You all were there for it, so you know. So here's this poem. This body is a temple to be kept polished, pristine, inside and out, an immaculate shrine to be entered by only one most dedicated worshiper. This body is an empty bucket, soon to be overflowing with propaganda and haunting whispers. You are not your own. The substance of others violently swirling, sloshing. Dreams of becoming real drown in the eddy. This body is a pyramid, robbed of every glimmering thing, then preserved, paraded by the looters themselves as a gift to those who too snatch bodies and land and cultures. The raison d'etre is to drink till the treasure runs dry. This body is a mass grave, though the buried are not dead, merely muffled, muted, except at those times when the cries break through, rise up, and demand to be perceived. Fret not, the doctor always swiftly stuffs them back and insists that no trees have fallen today. This body is a crime scene. No spilled blood, only too much tea that no one else wanted to sip, and so it flooded, until instead of a party, there was a mess and arguments of who cleans up when civility was offered but refused. This body is a houseboat, a rickety refuge that floats, flounders in a sea of precarity, towards shores stretched out like arms, something to finally anchor into. Yet 2 and 10 are traps, stakes much too high, it sails onward still. This body is obsidian, forged in subterranean storms of fire and time. It glimmers, glints. A seemingly whole gem distracts the eye from noticing it is but a bricolage of constant terror. All of this, yet none of these, for this body is merely a body, a soft, fleshy vessel holding involuntary consciousness coincidentally, that ethereal matter which makes us more than beasts, but wish that we weren't, fights desperately to know the shape of its own container. Thank you. I appreciate everyone coming out to hear me read, and maybe you all know me a little bit better after listening to those poems. And I'm really excited to hear my friend Elese read, and I think Clarity is going to do an introduction. Yes.
Thank you so much, Ashley-Devon. Wow, I love that last one. That is amazing. Thank you again for being here tonight. Thank you for reading. Just a quick mentioning, something I forgot to say at the beginning is that we are recording today, so just keeping that in mind. Just hoping everyone is all right with that. So as Ashley-Devon mentioned, up next is our poet, Elese Daniel. And Elese Daniel, she is a poet. She seeks presence and progress. Her work has been featured and recently published in Ginger magazine, Duet to Wet magazine, and Dinner Bell magazine. And her visual art has been shown at the Beacon exhibit at the Weston Art Gallery last fall. Elese lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, and rides a bicycle on the street. Elese's poetry has been exhibited as visual art, large and small scale, across Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky. Like I mentioned, at the Weston Art Gallery, but also at the Carnegie Covington. She holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Journalism from the University of Cincinnati, and she served as the community liaison to former Cincinnati Vice Mayor David Mann, and she helped restart the Cincinnati Poet Laureate program. So, pretty big deal. Melding together her many interests, this past summer, Elese combined her passions for bicycling, poetry, and community in her latest project called Story Cycle, a typewriter bike. It's an art bike and mobile residency project. Part vehicle, part writer's desk, Story Cycle hosts artists and bicyclists for days-long or weeks-long residencies. It is creative exercise, and it is an active connection to the people and world around us, and simultaneously offers time and space for individual introspection and physical presence. What a cool project. Elese's creative work can be accessed online at www.elesed.com, and you can connect with her socially as @_trying on Instagram. And don't worry, those links will be available in the chat. Thanks. Elese has also worked with the Cincinnati Public Library before for previous events, and she was one of our Queer Spotlight poets. And I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat too. But for now, please turn your attention to the very talented Elese Daniel. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so grateful to have heard Ashley-Devon read. It's been a bit, and some of those I've heard, and some of them I have not. So I'm really grateful to have listened to you today, Ashley-Devon. But yeah, thanks for the introduction. I always feel super cheesy after introductions, but thank you so much. I'm glad to share some space tonight with you all, friends, new friends, folks I've seen, folks I haven't, etc. I will read a handful of poems, some of them new, a couple of them old. Some of them share the same space as Ashley-Devon's work in Dinner Bell, or a counterpart of Ginger, just a different issue. So it's nice to share space in literal physical spaces with you, AD, but also really lovely to share this tonight. But cool, I'm gonna read some poems. I have always had to have poetry. I've always had poetry in my life. I've always been writing. It has never been the top priority. I've never gotten to prioritize it more than I have work or something else. And that still rings true now, but I am able to practice it and do it in a lot of like alternative ways, which is really fun for me. And I say all that just to say my creative practice of writing is like spotty. It's super here or like here and there and whatever. And so this past year with the like chaos that is what do we all experience of the past, like, I don't know, 2020, the start of this year, etc., is what it is. And we're still among it and in it. But this past year, I was able to start a really fun little creative practice with my partner, Nikki, who lives in New Orleans. And so we'll write like notes, letters, whatever, back and forth to each other. And that is my practice of writing and writing poems, is to just write a poem that exists only like just in the moment that I've sent it, and it is off to her. So I had to get some screenshots of some poems that I sent so I could share them tonight. So yeah, anyway, I'm gonna share a couple of those poems and then a couple of poems about my previous, connected to a previous apartment and a previous close friend and roommate. And then some newer pieces from the past year or so, and then one that I wrote connected to an event this last Monday, which I got to share space with Denny McLean, who is the current library writer in residence. So I'll share that piece last, and it's the newest piece as of this past month. So cool. Yeah. The first three are from the exchange with Nick. 2/23/21. I cleaned the dirt beneath my nails with the backs of my teeth seeking poetry. Small collection spat from the porch into the driveway, its drain bright with snow. Everything enclosed is opting for an exit, a release. 4/1/21. I stare up at the birds who hover in circles, and I never find their faces. Only wings and silhouettes, thin shadows unbothered by the wind. It's 5 p.m. and I wonder when the disassociated branch above the house will fall. Lizards on the brick skittering with their tails still long, full-bodied cat on my porch making eyes at me through the screen door. No one in Ohio is afraid of snow in April. We bury our naked feet in the couch, slide them up a lover's shirt and watch them jump. We can't go back. The time's changed. Cicadas warming in the soil, an unearthed alarm. Everyone eats this year, and everyone fucks to the same song. 2/4/21. There's a spot, a dried smear on the kitchen floor, clay from below the backyard, eroded rock, wet, old snow, a shifting cycle of itself from the faucet, old paper towel, napkin on the counter, wet, wrung and wiped wide along the thin layer of filth. A Monday morning stain cleaned on a Thursday. Barefoot, 2 feet from the window, I can see the small mound and stone I can see the small mound and stone. Everywhere else covered in leaves, snow in the shadows, slick as the still shining laminate, wet, old claws click-clack to the water bowl, and then to rest. My partner's kitty cat of 17 and a half years passed away, like February, which was a really wild, like months long time. But it was a really strange exchange, like the last day before, like he went to work and then I saw her come by the door to like see if he was still there. And then she like went downstairs and then like a little while after I found her. And I was just like, man, they had a really, really dope bond. They like she like held out until he like left just to like go. So it was just I didn't have as much of a relationship with the cat, but like it was a really sweet moment. And I just wanted to honor her in a little poem. Yeah. Old lady cats. Cool. I'm gonna switch to a couple. Those are all new. Those are all in the past like couple of months, which is a fun exchange actually. So I sent like we bought a tarot deck or an oracle deck for each other, and then we send a card and then some kind of note. And so I usually write a poem based on the card. I forget what that one was, but it's cute. It's cute. So I'm gonna switch to some older-ish poems. Kind of all like the three of them were kind of based around this apartment that I lived in for a long time, 4 years, in one spot in Cincinnati. That was pretty wild. It's pretty great. It treated me well. It was an old, dusty, nasty apartment, but it was great for the times that I had with it and the people that I got to share that space with. So I'm gonna read this poem, Wet Silverware. And it is, actually it was written I'm very fortunate to be able to do these like combinations of like poetry and music with a lot of the rad musicians that live in Cincinnati. And so I don't always perform with them necessarily, but I get to like write something set to or inspired by a certain piece of work. And so this was written for, it's in 4 parts. It's not very long though, because I don't really write long poems, but um, it was for Brianna Matsky's a response project that she did a while back. And I'm forgetting the work, so I'm sorry that I didn't look that up before, but I'm going to share this piece. I never really read it in its entirety, but I'm going to do that today. But yeah, wet silverware. Our hair hangs heavy from the pillowed corners of Allison's old mattress, unmoved through the open door. The stove light from the kitchen finds half your face before exiting out the window to disappear into the street. The dishes collect again on the counter, casting a range of stretched shadows across the floor. Though she did them one last time before leaving for good. I guess it's fine to leave bottles in the bath now, our clothes strewn along the linoleum, to spill wherever, where nothing more than small hills of water on our skin be soggy swarm. We'll call ourselves a valley, river licked. I assume in her distance she'll understand us as the sink, piled wet silverware and white teeth. Adrift, anchorless. I remember we once built a boat with only a dresser drawer and a cyan sheet, sat then in the same porcelain cup as earlier, watching the sun rise again with damp curls, radiator drip, steam, ping. Tonight it frosts again. Chain link clatter, footsteps on the sidewalk, corner women hoot like owls do, click flashing quick ass to the slowed trucks chill. I too tremble with the draft. Vacant lot pastoral, city drain sing all basin blown like fluting bottles held close to your lips. My neck holds air for you too, so hold your hands the way you were taught to. I leave small piles of dirt on the kitchen floor after thumbing my plants and filling them. I toss myself into stance. I drag my feet unintentionally. And this is to say, I am not a broom, nor are you. At times, we've thrown ourselves against the wall in the shape of broken dishes, pulled up glittered thorns from the cobwebbed corners of our home, found gems, blinding charm from a fork-footed imp, scalingly beautiful, with our splitting sharp tongues muddied with emotion and gritting jaws too proud to march to truth. We fell in line with our bows dropped, fists unclenching, learning to sag subtly, cables held by lulled cardinals. We learned to wield our liveliness with prowess, polite behavior, profession. All I've ever wanted was you, without knowledge of your name, still somehow heard it chirp, felt it in my mouth fly round the pink spoon of my throat. I fought the swallow, became a prism to your light, and spit up feathers like a full-bellied beast. Relief, relief, relief in the handle of our tempered alloy. I am ever impressed by you. Cool, cool, cool. Apartment poems. I gotta find I'll find the music and the artist who that was written to, because it's the piece is in 4 parts, so that goes along with that. I'll send that. I'll pull it up. Anywho, someone flicks a cigarette from the upstairs window and it lands in my hair before hitting the ground. And the ice in my mug melts, leaving 3 beige ovals and the speckled bits of coffee and Baileys. Today is a simple day. I pour the watery remains into a pot of petunias near the stoop and crack my toes while some alarm goes off at the factory down the street. Old boy passes with his wet-smiled pit again, and someone on the corner is talking with Rudy, rolling a blunt. Quick nods, busy smiles. Upstairs, someone is moving and a woman moving in, and a woman in the mover's truck hollers that she's thirsty. The men ignore her requests, so I bring her a glass from the kitchen. She sits with me and asks about the neighborhood. Misgenders Rudy, and I say, seems like everyone who's comfortable here should be. Everyone on the sidewalk frowns and stares when a car passes too fast and loud, lifting the birds from the wire. You can always hear them here. I can tell you which is a cardinal song. I can tell you which cardinal is male or female, but it doesn't matter. Both are beautiful birds. Um, cool. This will be the last poem about this particular apartment. I like to write about apartments, I guess. I realized that when I was going through the set. um, but this was written after the Kavanaugh Supreme Court hearing. So, you know, from one news day to a past one. This is Swell. Yeah, shout out to Dunlap. Thanks, Avril. Swell. Staring at the 5 tomatoes I've harvested from outside my apartment in Tahira's old plastic pot, wind blown from the second floor fire escape, thinking about all the water Chris and I filled from the tub faucet and poured into the dirt for the fruit in my palm. At some point in the summer, I abandoned the garden, let stalks fall over with their weight dragging against the patio's cement, leaves brushed by bodies and bags of trash collected from the upstairs neighbors. I sometimes thank the sky for remembering the effort, Chris too, but today I'm fisting 5 tomatoes with a head full of men shouting and throwing their hands about until they collide into desks or a past they've since erased, or around a voice, a truth, a woman, and questioning whether or not to squeeze. This is an old poem that got weaved into a poem, a larger poem called Incantations for Her, which was written kind of as it was written to be exhibited, and it was also an exhibition at the Westin where they let me like blow up a poem all over the walls and floors and windows and such. But I wanted to share it today because I hadn't seen it in a long time, and my friend Allison moved away to Los Angeles this past year, and was like the only person that I really saw. And like I got to give her a hug before she left out to go to Los Angeles, so that was really exciting during a time where like you weren't allowed to be giving anybody hugs, but I did it. So. Airy. Did anybody ever wear airy underwear? Or maybe you still do? So anyway, okay, airy. I did. Allison's asleep beneath my quilts, covering a third of her body, arms and legs sprawled across the wrinkled maroon sheets as if I'd never been lying with her. She's bald now, but her legs are prickly. Last night, we drug my mattress in here because Zach moved out. My room is all prepped for boxing. There's nothing in here besides yesterday's clothes, which we've worn for 2 days, and half a Cuban sandwich. For the past few weeks, we've only slept in the mornings when the sky is indigo blue and twinkling like her sun-glinted gold chains piled atop panties and scarves on the hardwood. Her body nest of fabric and bling, her home within my home that's fleeting. I was gonna read like 3 more, but if I'm like close to time, then I can like just read this last one. Or y'all think, can I read the 3? They're not long.
No, go for all 3, please.
Cool. Okay. Cool. I'm going for all 3. Or maybe 2. So I'm going to read a poem from this ginger, a different ginger. Sorry, I'm burping. My bad. Cool. So I'm gonna read two poems that are in here, and then this first one just because I haven't read it ever and I want to, and it mentioned sunflowers, and then the other one because um, it's super short, and because Clarity posted a prompt during like early quarantine times, or posted this like page where people could share things that they wrote or were writing during this time, and so a piece that I wrote prompted from that group made it into Ginger, which is cool. So I wanted to share that, and thank you, Clarity. Cool. So um, I made a pie. I made a pie and ate it from the center on Mark's birthday. The three of us with forks, bodies splayed across his living room floor, half interested in Independence Day, which we watched through the huge front window of the house. TV VHS combo turned toward us from the porch. Chris lived in Chicago still, and I kept driving up with some baked good or something for somebody who made me feel whole, even if only for a weekend. The last time I saw those floorboards and that porch, Kelly offered me cut sunflowers and had already broken Mark's heart, or he hers. I let the sunflowers live in the windshield of my truck for a year until someone stomped through it. I guess that still is a Dunlap apartment poem because 10 different cars got their windshield smashed in for no reason. But, but it's a funny story that I get to share and write poems about. So it's funny now. You know, having a windshield busted isn't great, but still cool. So super short one, prompted by Clarity. I keep writing the same line in different ways, essentially asking, how much more will we age anyway? And from an unmarked pile of rocks in an overgrown alleyway, I acknowledge I am trying too hard to remain soft. Cool. I'll read this last poem. See, these are quick. These are quick ones. I'll read this last poem. It's the newest thing I've written. I'm feeling all right about it. So I was a part of a talk last Monday with, or was it Monday? Yeah, I think so. With with Urban Consulate, and which is a group that has talks about cities involving people who are in the city, etc. It's like a talk series, but like it's pretty cool. It could be pretty cool, yeah. And I got to like introduce, or I got to start a conversation about like, what does it mean for women to be building the city? So I read a couple of poems and shared some poems that I liked, and I wrote this piece. And then Danny McLean, current library writer in residence, but also a journalist and nurturer, caregiver, etc. Just a really amazing person. And Kiana Trebu kind of had a conversation about city building and women, etc. Anywho, I just really struggle with like, what does it even mean to be a woman? What is that even important? Is that the title I'm going to lead with? Is it like, I don't really know. And so I don't really know. And so I read, and I'm always like, it was also like four black women that were having this conversation. So then, bro, what even is it? But like there's so much to that, and like that's a forever journey of like figuring that out and like deciding what it is for you and deciding if it is for you at all, etc. So anyway, I wrote this poem called "Every Day I Am Awake, I Am Made Aware." I dared to name this body daily. Its bones mirror and brick, internal and eternally reflective, a bound collection of earth and rain enshadowed, shaped to embody woman. I am only one study of she. I am porous with might, retentive, too often unable to ring free, and it is morning. And I am cupping my hands above the bathroom sink on a spring day in Ohio. Today, the ground is wet. And I spread a small pool across my face to wash or welcome whatever weight wishes to ail or honor me. Armor is a shifting tension sitting just beyond the skin, hovering like a filling cloud. And I am willing to wear what is needed as long as it is my choice. And I am willing to be worn with risk which serves revelation. I am willing to part for there to be light. Thanks, y'all.
Good God. Wow. At you both. Seriously. Thank you so much for your time and your presence and your emotions and candor. Yeah, seriously. So beautiful. Thank you guys. And a Zoom round of applause again. I saw some people doing the snap things too, and I was like, yes, yes, I miss it. Wish I could hear it. So yeah, we are going to open up the floor for questions, for comments, for, feel free to start a conversation in the chat. You're more than welcome to turn your mic on, and your responses are welcomed. Our poets are so appreciated, so please exhaust them of their fantastic insights. So it sounds like the quarantine or the pandemic or whatever was actually pretty fruitful for both of you during the shutdown. As had a lot of inspiration and had a lot of time to act on that inspiration. I guess maybe pandemic is the best thing for a writer because it's a lot of free time, but it's all bad. So I feel like writers thrive under bad conditions.
Oh no, at the end there, I was pretty dry. So I think I was inspired for like the first like 25%. So I'd say, I wouldn't call it a good thing, but I can spin it that way next time I talk to my therapist.
Yeah, I don't know. Grief's a motherfucker. So when you're like processing through that, you just start unloading stuff. I feel like Ashley-Devon said something that one of your poems uses the respite and rage, and I think about like that was weaved throughout all of this past year for sure, and definitely throughout my processing of grief. So yeah, it was fruitful in that way, but also a motherfucker. Yeah.
It was almost like I had like the energy of a toddler for like a whole year. It's like someone in their late 20s. Like I was just like constantly angry and sad. And then when I wasn't that, I was just like sleeping or like zoned out. Someone had to put on a movie for me to get me to calm down.
Ooh, question in the chat for you, Ashley.
My bad. I'm not even looking over there.
Oh no, I got you. I was just gonna read it. How do you feel like studying people for work shows up in your poems?
I mean, very blatantly, it showed up in the fieldwork poem. I try to make my poems as introspective as possible because so much of my work is focused on other people and extracting so much from them. And I think that most sciences, there is the scientist and then there's the thing being studied by the scientist, and there's very little like dialogue and mutual interaction happening there. And I like to use my poems as a space to kind of admit the impact that the people that I engage with daily have on me. So I feel like that's a space to do. Elise, do you want to take on Kelly's question first? How do you go about choosing outlets for submission and publication?
Sure, yeah. I honestly have a great wealth and abundance of great friends who show up in my poems by name, but also they just let me know about different stuff, and then they run presses or things themselves. So Dinner Bell and Ginger. Ginger is a really they call themselves a rhizomatic feminist zine. So it's kind of exclusive. It's invite only. So and then there's this like connected web of folks. So everybody passes on to like. So I got suggested. So a friend of mine who was published in the previous issue suggested me, and then I suggested Ashley-Devon and Nikki and maybe a couple other people. So then it kind of like grows from there, which is.
And I suggested Kelly, and now she's shining.
Yeah, so that's cool. And then Dinner Bell is I was very fortunate to go out to a writing retreat last January that was prompted like my partner Nikki invited me to it. And it was Desiree DeMalgialco. It's called The Heart of It. She's a famous poet, spoken word artist. I would say famous. I say famous. So she had a writing retreat, and I was fortunate to go out and join that. And I met Howard, who is one of the like editors or publishers of Dinner Bell. So that was just a fortunate like exchange. So just fortunate to like have friends who are doing cool stuff and think of me. Clarity. And then also, yeah, that they're connected to, they're also creative. So they just like share different things. So, and then I share those around to my community. Yeah. I don't know. Do you have a thought connected to that, Ashley-Devon?
I'd say it's pretty similar. I'm pretty new to publication. Not new to poetry by any means, but new to making my artistic work public. Academia sucks up a lot of your time and a lot of your soul. And the process of artistic production and publication are very different. But I've been fortunate enough to have friends like Elese. And then sometimes I find other like smaller outlets just online looking for things. Sometimes I'll have a poem, know that I want to submit it somewhere, and so I will look up things attached to the themes that are present in the poem, and I found publications that way.
That is really cool how Ginger Magazine does that, where it's like a connection to the next writer. I feel like that offers some insurance as far as like similar ideas and a community of people, and that's really cool. That's fascinating.
Yeah, that was Abby Friend, local creative artist person, friend of mine. I didn't know about Ginger until I got a random email saying I was invited to participate, and I was like, okay. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I like that like aesthetic choice or whatever of like this like connected web.
I think poetry publication does that sometimes on its own too. So I was already in the process of like finalizing my Dinner Bell publication and being the human obsessed anthropologist that I am. I like dating websites, and I just go on there, find people that are interesting to talk to. And I met someone, and we were just like on like a Zoom date, and they were talking to me about their poetry, and they were like, yeah, I published in this mag called Dinner Bell. It's just like really goofy. And I was like, I'm gonna be in Dinner Bell. So now we're connected as friends in Dinner Bell for no real reason other than apparently like poets like to get on Hinge and like go on Zoom dates with each other. So
I am just now connecting the dots after remembering you telling that story. So congrats, fast forward to us all.
Would you ask for name? You said, what's both of our favorite words this week?
Yeah, I just had to look up rhizomatic after you said it, and I love it.
Honestly, did not know. And then I was like, oh, duh, ginger, like certain kind of root vegetables or things like that. I was like, oh, wow. But
it's
yeah.
such a good word.
I can suggest the word that I just learned. Let's see if I can remember how to say it. Oh, come back to me. Actually, I just forgot. Sorry.
Also, Adam asked a question in the chat, which I think is a great one. Keep brainstorming your word. After a year of intense introspection, when the pandemic abates and things become safe, how do you plan to bring poetry back out to the public?
So prior to the pandemic, I was the host of Inkwell Open Mic, and that was hosted once a month at Urban Artifact. And we brought a local poet in to just read, and they got paid, and people just hang out, have a drink, and listen to some poetry. Clarity was asking me earlier if I was planning on bringing it back, and I said, it's going to be backed by public demand. So if you all want the poetry back out to the public, if you demand it from me, I will make it happen. If I receive no demands, I'm going to take that as you all just want me to stay home in my pajamas watching Hulu, which I will also do.
But that's where the poems come from, that rest, right? Like, the word was pernicious. Let me see if I'm saying that right. Pernicious, yes. And it's like a harmful effect that is like gradual over, like, or subtle over time. And I just felt like there are many times that I've wanted to like express that, and I usually find some other way to like give that vibe, but to learn a word that means it, pernicious, I hadn't heard before. I'm reading a book called The Tyranny of Metrics, related to work, because I have to do this data and eval stuff connected to my work, which is really important. But I just feel like sometimes measuring stuff is kind of like just for money, but it's cool because I will take the money. But pernicious. And then how will I get poetry out into the world again? I was trying to convince Ashley-Devon to join me this weekend or something, with a story cycle, so we can do short order poetry or do some sort of, I just plugged that. So we could write poems for people in a park somewhere. So the story cycle will be back out in the world again, for people to ride and write poems and write whatever. And then I'll be out in the world occasionally, randomly, no rhyme or reason to it, just when I feel like it, and with some friends, hopefully, writing poems for folks that they get to keep. It's one of my favorite ways to write poems, is just ones that I never really see again, and they just live in that moment with that person. It's really great.
Yes. So, Elise, I have that in my calendar, which that's how you know I'm committed, because if it's not in the calendar, it's just not happening. I think that it's like, okay for us to just admit that that's where a lot of us are at right now in life. So Brooks is insisting I plug YPPC. So Brooks, do you want to come off your camera so people can know who I'm talking about? So my partner Brooks and I, Brooks is a musician, and last year we did a really fun project where some of the poems you heard today were also included in a performance that I did with them, where I read poems accompanied by original music that they composed. And this year we are working with 3 youth poets and 3 youth musicians to have them put on a similar type of performance that will be performed, live streamed at the Price Hill Creative Community Festival in July of this year. And so that's a partnership with WordPlay and My Cincinnati, which are really awesome nonprofits that work with youth that are interested in the arts in Cincinnati. So really excited for that. And then I guess to go back to like the word thing, I guess I didn't say my word. I feel like I spend a lot of time trying to get away with creating words, like in my academic writing. Like, is this allowed? Is someone gonna like read this and say that it makes sense? And since I don't spend a lot of time reading fiction, I mostly just spend time like looking up phrases to make sure I'm using them correctly. And I went into a wiki haul the other day about the term Coptic, which is essentially related to the languages that spawned out of the ancient Egyptian language. And yeah, so that was like 2 hours of just learning a lot about Coptic culture and Coptic language. So yeah. I'm going to pass it back to you, Clarity, unless Elise, if you have something. I am good.
That is amazing. I really love the trend, well, and I don't mean to say trend in a frivolous way, but the trend about doing short order poetry or pocket poetry. I do feel like I've seen that style of poetry become more popular, but I do love the actual idea of writing a poem and giving it to a person and having art to keep and having poetry that is accessible in the truest way, that someone gives it to you and you get to keep it. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean, and you write it, you're creating it together. I mean, somebody is sharing something with you that I'm going to use eyes. Somebody is sharing something with me, and then I take whatever they shared, and then I offer up whatever it is I got in that moment, and like where I'm at in that moment, and then we create this like small little piece together that there's only one of, that lives with them, the person who helped create it. I never see it again unless I remember to take a picture of it, which I forget all the time. So
yeah, exactly. It's unique. It's ephemeral. It's very like, it's that shooting star effect. I love that.
Yeah, I think so. The Chase Public Boys, they based it on, I forget who wrote the book, but there's the concept of the gift, like the kind of exchange between people that is a gift of shared creative offerings, essentially. And that's where that was my first encountering of doing short order poetry, or I've never heard it called pocket poetry, so that's cool, or like poetry on the spot, etc., which is really cool.
Are there any other questions or comments or anything else for our fantastic poets? This has been awesome. And thank you guys for everything that you've shared too.
Thanks for chatting with us, y'all.
Thank you all. You all, the hosts, the audience, this has been a great experience. I'm like kickstarted for the year. Kit Kat. Well, Sammy.
Yes, right before we jump off, I just want to mention real quick, I was instructed to plug my very good friend Adam Borbach here, who also works with the library. He just posted it in the chat too, that the library has one more poetry event coming up for April, which is National Poetry Month. The Warlock Vorobach Reads podcast comes out, and he's going to be reading Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. The podcast can be found on Spotify and SoundCloud in the link below. And yeah, if you're interested in any other events, feel free to hit us up at cincinnatilibrary.org. Thank you so much again to Ashley-Devon and Elese Daniel. This has been amazing. Thank you so much to the Cincinnati Public Library, and thanks for being here for the 23rd annual Poetry in the Garden event.
Thank you, everyone. It was wonderful, wonderful. The Warlock approves.
Yay, I hope you guys have a great night. Rest and recoup and hopefully be healed by these fantastic poems.
Yeah, thanks so much, y'all.
Thank you.
My heart is warmed. Thank you, everyone. Good night.